Well, it is May, and that means school is out for the summer for most of us. So for our monthly medical segment on Doctors on Call, we're going to talk about children's mental health and wellness. And joining us today is pediatrician Dr. Ashley Fisher from Carle Health. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Everyone's usually pretty excited about summer, but it's a big change in schedules. Talk about what that's like for kids.
Yeah, so change in schedule is always going to come with apprehension over what that's going to mean for their, not just their day-to-day, but also what that's going to mean for responsibilities, what the summer holds. It definitely tends not to be as structured as the school year, which can sometimes increase apprehension, as well as excitement, which is just as big an emotion, can actually cause its own level of anxiety.
So do you see more anxiety, depression, and other, I guess, mood changes during the summer for kids?
Oh, I'd say definitely the opposite, actually.
Really?
Yeah. So, you know, I like to say to my parents a lot when I'm talking just about mental health in kids at this age that when we were young, it was hard, right? And so just growing up in junior high, high school, that's a hard time when you're trying to find yourself socially, but we could escape it at home, right? So if my bully wanted to bully me after hours, they had to call my mom on the landline. So no one was going to be doing that. But kids these days, they're exposed to it 24/7. You know, they have social media, they have access to their friends through their phones 24/7. Which means they have access to the stress and the anxiety that comes along with that 24/7.
Talk about that. What should parents look out for behaviors in their kids that might be concerning, especially if they're in that social media age?
Yeah, and it can be so hard, especially those teenage years where they are definitely not wanting to share with their parents. In general, the best advice I can give is to know your child pretty well, and then to know what their baseline is so that you know when they're off from their baseline. So teenagers, preteens, they're going to want some privacy, and that's okay. But if they're withdrawn all the time, if they start to not do activities they previously liked, they love playing baseball, they don't want to play baseball anymore. They always went out with their friends, and now they're constantly canceling plans. Things like that can be kind of worrisome signs that it's maybe time to check in.
What are some habits you think families should start, like day one of summer break, to make sure that everyone is maintaining healthy summers that's, you know, mentally, physically, emotionally?
Oh, yeah. By far the best one is a sleep schedule. And I know parents always groan when I say that because it's so hard on the summers.
It is.
It is. But when we're staying up till 3 a.m. playing video games and waking up at noon, that just really throws our body's rhythms off. So trying to have some semblance of a schedule. I'm not saying they have to get up at 6 a.m. anymore, but before the afternoon is probably a pretty good goal to set. And then making sure that their days are filled with something. So, you know, summer's definitely a great time to relax. It's a time to take a mental, physical break from the rigors of school, but we don't want the whole summer to just be completely unplanned. So having some activities that keep them busy.
And what are your thoughts on screen time? Do you think it should be limited in the summer? How do parents go about that?
You think I get groans on the sleep thing. So, you know, the screen time thing is such an interesting parenting dilemma that our generation has to deal with that previous generations really didn't. And so we're getting some, you know, quite a few studies that are now coming out that unfortunately are really showing just a lot of negative detrimental effects of chronic screen time. And so one of the ones I found most interesting I like to tell parents about is they did some pretty good, they looked at MRIs of children that had pretty extensive screen exposure, over 4 hours a day. And they actually found changes in the brain equivalent to that of cocaine users.
Oh, wow.
Crazy, right?
That is
And so
crazy.
we're seeing, you know, we know there's this positive relationship between increased screen time and depression, anxiety, all those different mental health issues, and the number tends to be 2. So 2 hours is really what we recommend a day, trying to cut it back to. And I get that that can be borderline impossible sometimes. Yes. So I always tell parents, set it as a goal. If we don't hit it that day, that's okay. But you know that your goal should be to be cutting back as much as feasibly possible on that screen time.
All right, Dr. Fisher, thank you so much for joining us and giving us some helpful tips this summer. All right, we'll be right back.